President Paul Hart, Bruce Devlin, Joe Tolosano, Kathy Devlin, and Mike Parker. The next item, or the first item on our agenda, is a discussion and vote to recommend to the Board of Selectmen that the fiscal 2026 budget be adopted.
I'd like to make a motion to get the discussion on the table and vote to recommend to approve the budget. Second.
Is there any further discussion?
I think it's a good idea.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? The motion carries. Could we have, please, our Board of Education update? Dr. Galloway?
Thank you and good evening. I think the most substantial item that I'd like to brief you on is the status of our HVAC project. So I was advised that the Board of Selectmen voted to dissolve the current school building committee because its formation originally fell outside of the town charter. So presently, I'm waiting to hear what their next action will be in starting a new building committee. In the meantime, and by the way, I'm not sure if you are aware that the old building committee did vote to pause all expenditures because the bids came in higher than what was projected. So they hit a hard stop and pause on that. I wanted to let you know that. And lastly, we did request from the state an extension to expend the grant funds. So we have an extension until December of 2026. So we do have some time. So I'm in a wait and see with the Board of Selectmen at this point regarding the project.
I remember being at a meeting with your management experts, your consultants, that we paid somewhat close to $1 million, I think, where they told us that the $15 million, were it authorized, would be sufficient to do the job. They were pretty confident of that. What's happened?
You know, it took two meetings, actually, in my opinion, for them to own it, that their projections were too low. Initially, the comments were, well, the market has spoken. The bids came in because companies were unsure of impending tariffs, et cetera, et cetera. But the building committee, they were very vocal in their commentary, and said, you know, you guys postured as the experts, and we relied on that expertise, and you failed us. So by the second meeting, they did own that. They failed, in my opinion, in regard to that, because I'm very sensitive to how this project has moved forward, being as though I inherited it. We put a lot of effort into securing that grant. The town came together on two different occasions to support this project. So on this second failure regarding projections, it was a loss of confidence. And that's brought about that hard pause of 30 days. And during that time, the Board of Selectmen met and reviewed their practices. And, you know, we've worked well in partnership. I want to state that publicly. But it was a loss of confidence and a failure on their part, because you're right, Mr. Chairman. They do position themselves and posture as the experts.
Shouldn't they be out with the checkbook at this point? Huh? I mean, seriously, don't they have a liability? They're the ones who told us what it was going to cost on several occasions, but a meeting that was set totally
Right.
for the purpose of getting them to grind down to a final number that they knew we could get this project done for.
Right.
But it's our kids who are going to suffer.
Right. To respond to that and doing our due diligence, we did consult with our legal counsel as to what our recourse could be. And it was like, well, no harm officially happened to you. Yeah, was the legal opinion.
So what's the alternative approach? I mean, we're not going to go out for another bond.
Correct. What was on the table was rescoping the project.
Right.
But then that forced a conversation as to, well, what did the public really vote on?
Well, that's the key question. They vote on air conditioning and clean air
Right.
across the spectrum of that institution.
Right. And
So is that still achievable in some capacity?
Yes. Certain areas of the school would.
So they voted on the entire
Well, then no.
Well, I do want to hear what the modified would look like.
No AC in the auditorium, the large spaces, gym, caf, etc. The classrooms could be done, but that's where we hit kind of a loggerhead. Was the town, that was not the expectation when people cast their vote.
Right.
And being transparent, we would have to communicate that.
Right.
And, I had skin in the game. Our parents had skin in the game. I met on 2 different occasions with parents of the elementary school just about relocating. We put in man and woman hours with presenting diagrams and figures to parents to show them that we had a very doable plan with moving kids and creating spaces. So,
And you took a lot of heat for that.
yes, I did.
We have suffered a loss of about $1 million to these folks for the consulting fees.
We've paid less than 100,000 total.
I thought there was some
the guys
figure we got
before
like
that, too.
$600 to $1 million that we paid these guys.
No.
But we also paid a previous.
We paid a previous group where
So
to
what's
do
the
the
total?
design
What's
work.
the total amount that we've paid for consulting on
With this
so far?
group or in total for the project?
With the
Probably
design and this group is
700,000.
probably about 700,000 roughly.
600,000-700,000.
Yeah.
So we paid $700,000 for consulting fees. We're out of pocket if we don't have a project as a result of it. There's a $700,000 loss. I don't know how much time Stephanie and all the rest of you folks in the school department have put into this project, but those hours
Count 2.
Right.
they're part of the loss that
Right.
we've experienced,
Right.
right? So to say, to have some, and I don't know much about lawyering, but I do know that that those are some significant losses that the town has hit
Right.
because of
Failure on these.
failure on the part of all these people who have been
Well, we
consulting.
could sue them. Seems to happen a lot in this country.
And they have insurance to cover professional liability. So, I mean, it's not like it's a done deal, but it's not a waste of our time, I would suggest.
So what is the mechanism, since we have a bunch of lawyers here? Is a town meeting sufficient to adjust the vote on the referendum, or do you need another referendum?
In what
This-
sense?
In state that instead of them voting on the entire institution or physical structure, and this tariff thing's not over, so you don't have a hard number,
Right.
and your clock is ticking, how does that get communicated? Because I think there is a liability on the part of the town to be transparent and to make sure that vote is done correctly.
Right, so if we wanted to, you mean to increase the appropriation?
No,
to change
To change the scope.
To change the
change the
scope of the
scope.
project?
Is a town meeting sufficient to do
Town
that?
meeting would be sufficient as long as you weren't changing the dollar amount.
That's all yeah.
Yes, you could change the scope with just a town meeting.
I suggest you look at what was exactly voted on.
Oh,
I don't
I know,
know
yep.
that it said the entire school. I think it
It's,
said,
it did.
it did?
Oh, I read the entire resolution. And,
Okay.
we actually, one of the meetings we had, the chairman of the Board of Ed was in the meeting, and she said, we never wanted air conditioning. So it's the very first line in the resolution.
Yeah.
that there will be an HVAC system. And it didn't say that there would just be a V system. There was a heating, a ventilation, and air conditioning.
And it also has to meet a clean air standard, Stephanie, is that correct? Because you're using state funds for,
Yeah, there really aren't any standard, like measurable standards at this point, but they want, ventilation, mechanical ventilation is
Right.
the standard. It's the minimum standard. It's
Well,
mechanical
I would-
ventilation, because right now we don't have
And
it.
I don't mean to speak for you or anybody, but from my personal opinion, I would rather go to the town and say that circumstances, tariffs, whatever, have forced us to modify the project, rather than go to the town and say, we're not doing it. We can't get there.
no, we can't, we got
And
to do it.
the fear, though, is, and just from my personal perspective, I mean, the school is what the school is. It's a 100,000 square foot building that you're heating and ventilating and cooling. So to remove the gym and the cafeteria, and they could put their estimates on it and say, oh yeah, you can get it done for less than this. You got to go back out to bid. It costs the same money to mobilize for a third of the school as it does for the entire school. So what you're saving is really on the materials, and how much are they, they've already proven to us twice that their estimates on the cost of materials is wrong. So they can estimate and say, oh, you can get it under $15 million by getting rid of the gym. And we go, great, we go back out to bid, and then we get hit again, and it's still not enough money.
But their
So
estimates were wrong before this tariff.
Oh, absolutely.
They were
definitely
wrong
were.
out the door,
Yep.
both companies.
Yep.
So
Right, I mean,
tariffs is just the
This
current
project
excuse.
This project started at 9.4 million.
Right. Now we're over.
We're at 16 and a half now.
Yeah, they want 20.
And if they're that far off, we have losses that are a result of their error. And our ability to try to, we should try to recoup that dough from them.
But I think the challenge, from what I'm hearing, is you're not going to get a hard number in today's environment.
Right, because they're going to bid it, but every contractor is going to have in their bid, some type of clause that keeps them from having to take on the impacts of any tariffs that are imposed. So while today it might cost you X, in 6 months when the contractor starts on it and the tariffs are hitting them and the price of steel is 30% higher than it is today, and they're not going to eat that cost. They're going to pass that on to us, and we're not going to have enough money to pay for it still.
Lots of those statements that you make probably have a lot of truth, that there isn't a defined number for what it's costing us for equipment. We don't know whether that goes up or down, and on and on and on. But there are people in the business who know about that stuff, and that's the kind of person that we need to have that's running this show. Because you guys need to spend your time trying to teach our kids, right? We need to have an expert in contracting, commercial contracting involved in the process of running this. Because that's the only person that can say to a contractor and a bidder, hey, you're full of baloney. You know what I mean?
So the demise of the state school construction group in Hartford, half of whom are on their way to jail, are there any of those people that you could contract or contact that we could, because those are the experts. I mean, we had them in the university system. Those are the ones who build $80 million schools all day long.
Well, that's what we thought our owner's rep was going to do for us.
Yeah.
And
That hasn't happened.
it has not happened. They just haven't met our expectations.
So we can't tap into those state offices to,
I mean, we can look for guidance to some extent from the state.
But they're not gonna
It's not
be-
going to,
they're not going to champion your project. They're not going to be the manager of it
right,
unless it's their project.
right. And I don't want to go to jail. So.
No, you don't look good in pinstripes.
I haven't memorized a phone number in 20 years. I wouldn't even know who to call.
But there are people who could do that for us. We have one who just built a $150 million school for the Bishop of Springfield. Those are people who are around that could champion a project like this for you guys and let you focus on what you do best, and that is trying to teach our kids, right? Just saying.
I'm picking up what you're putting down.
What's that?
We're,
He's getting it.
yeah, we're
picking it up.
frustrated too.
Yeah. But you should explore the avenue of recouping some of our losses. Certainly, I don't think you can go after that first firm. That's several years ago. But if you've only paid them $100,000, maybe you can get 50 out of them or 75 or
So
something.
much, can't believe it.
But I think, like I said, the challenge is going to be to nail this thing down, and you're going to be extremely challenged.
Right.
Maybe it'll get easier after July, but I don't know. But you've lost 6 months then.
Right.
Yeah.
Have you talked to Ellington about it? Because when they got there, they got a really good effort from the state, but what could you do? Is anything you might be able to give any ideas? Or,
I mean, as
They're
far
in
as
the
I
same
know, I was
position.
gonna say, as far as I know, their
They're
project
underfunded
hasn't
too.
moved forward either.
Their project is underfunded too.
Yeah,
oh,
it hasn't moved forward
They
at
didn't
all.
get an accurate quote either.
Yeah, and
that was
they,
a nice article in the paper that time, and you think, wow,
Yeah.
Nuclear, just being estimated, it doesn't matter.
Who cares?
it's like being a meteorologist.
Past 6 years.
No, maybe 3.
Thank you, Sam.
Thanks, Sam.
Tim?
Just to follow up on what Sam was talking about, the Board of Selectmen last Thursday evening heard word from the town attorney that the charter requires that any kind of committee that is put together like the school building committee, it must be authorized by the Board of Selectmen. So he basically told us that any decisions or whatever the committee has made up until now cannot stand on their own, can't be enforced. So he recommended disbanding, dissolving the committee. And so we asked, and we directed the town attorney to come up with, okay, what's the resolution that we need to present to the town? I think the town has to approve it at a town meeting and come up with language. So
Does it even go to a town meeting?
So we do.
Can't even.
For a school project.
Recommend
School project.
both sides of the fence. Okay,
Yeah.
understood. I didn't know that.
So we directed the town attorney to come up with that language, so we're waiting to get that. Hopefully we'll get it by next week, and we can move on from there. Next week is
What has happened with the money that's been spent so far? Does it have to be ratified as part of this process?
No, because the Board of Selectmen approved the payments.
Okay.
No decisions were made.
Yeah.
Otherwise, yeah.
Okay.
So that's the first item. The next thing I want to mention is just that the Bond Commission, which I had mentioned in my remarks, we've got a meeting tomorrow. Todd Rowland and I are going to meet with the Governor's Chief of Staff to talk about, we've requested a $5 million grant from the state to support the wind development project, which of course involves a significant amount of low-income housing or workforce housing. Something that we think that has a high priority in the state, but the fact that Summers is a wealthier community than others that might compete with it, and we may have difficulty getting on the agenda for the Bond Commission. We're working on that. That's the purpose of tomorrow's meeting. And I was just talking with Brian earlier in the day. We were trying to figure out, is there a way that we could mention the fact that Summersville, as part of Summers, is a less economically advantaged community, and that somehow that might help
It
us.
does have a different zip code, doesn't it?
We
Yeah,
do.
There's
We
no,
have different post
there's no
offices.
census data that separates the two, unfortunately.
So we might mention that.
I think
but
that's-
as far as I was dealing with Brian's office, trying to come up with, is there anything we can point to that we can use as evidence to support that argument? But we'll use whatever we can. We did use that argument with regards to the wastewater treatment plant request for funding, and we did use it there. Whatever made a difference, I don't know. That's all I have, basically.
Any questions for Tim?
So, by the way, we expect to ask that the same people that are on the committee stay on the committee, so that as far as this resolution goes, it'll be the same number of people and the same people as well. So that's the direction we're headed.
Can you ratify their acts after the fact? Can you include that in your vote? So if you're going to have the same people be on the committee, the building committee, I assume that's what you're talking about, right? As part of that, can you ratify their past acts?
That's a good question.
That's what the question he asked.
That's what I was kind of driving at, because if it was an illegal
Transaction.
Yeah, I would want to see the past acts ratified to protect the committee members.
Right. I mean, anything that came out of there came to the, so any contracts with like the owner's rep and so forth, all of that was presented to the Board of Selectmen, and they were the ones who voted on all the contracts and signed everything. The building committee doesn't have any authority to do that. So, I mean, realistically, anything that happened has already been approved by the Board of Selectmen. And they have that ability to enter into contracts with people. I don't know that it might be a good question for Carl, though, just to put in some wording that, there's no.
I certainly would remove that defense.
Right.
That an opposing lawyer might drag up if all of those acts of the building committee were approved in retrospect.
The building committee just made recommendations.
Yeah.
The Board of Selectmen made final decision.
So it's your fault. Anything further for Tim? Tim, do you have anything else? No. Okay. Brian, do you have anything for us?
Yeah, so last Thursday, we agreed to, so we had the bond presentation, $2 million came in front of us. We had a meeting at, was it 11:45 last Thursday? Included myself, Tim Keeney, Mike Marinaccio, Susan Karen, our financial advisor, and Mike Botello, our bond counsel. The bids were open for the $2 million bond sale for the town for road improvements. We had six total bids. The lowest bid was by SWBC Investments out of San Antonio, Texas. We accepted their bid. The total interest cost on it was 3.32%. From that, we'll receive a premium of about $130,000. So the net interest cost to the town for that $2 million over the next 10 years will cost us $380,000. That'll pave, I think it's approximately 8 miles of roadway in the first year. We have a meeting scheduled for May 1st with our bond attorney to handle all of the signing of documents and closing and so forth. And we're scheduled to receive the funds on May 6th. The plan right now is the $130,000 premium will be put towards the first payment's interest, or the first interest payment of the year that we will see in November. And then if there's any left after that, it'll go towards the second interest payment as well.
What effect does the 130 have on the true interest rate?
The true interest rate is 3.32. And she didn't send me the numbers, and to be honest with you, it was a calculation that I could not figure out. I was trying to figure out what the net interest rate was, and could not figure it out. I kept coming up with 1.9, and I was like, I know that's not right because it's way too low. But I mean, 380,000 of 2 million. But yeah, I couldn't. It kept giving me a number that I do not have any confidence in whatsoever. Because 1.9 is way too low. We did compare it during our meeting. We did compare it to the bond issuance in 2020, and they pulled up those numbers, and that was issued at 1.5%. Gone are those days. But the plan is to begin road paving right near the end of this month. I think Todd's got them scheduled to come the next week, and it'll go through early May, finishing the first year roads. And then Todd and I have already begun working on year 2 and potentially rolling year 3 into it. Year 3 included the parking lots at the school, so we're kind of jockeying around and seeing what we can do and what our best position would be. But right now the goal would be to have the resolution for year 2 and possibly year 3 in front of the selectmen by the end of May, and a resolution for the Board of Finance to approve by the end of June. And then that way we could get everything to the state so that it could be on the November ballot for approval at that time. And right now it would be right around that same amount, that $2 million, but that number might fluctuate with the way that rates are kind of moving right now, and we think they're going to kind of hold steady and not see any decreases. We may push that out. We may group 2 years together and issue a note at first and put it off for a year before we actually issue debt so that we can stagger the payments as well. Going through multiple scenarios, trying to come up with the best option. But just so everybody knows, there will be a resolution coming to you in the next 10 weeks or so.
Did you say it was 132, the premium?
130,000, yep.
Yeah. I thought it was 130. I mean, I don't know if it's good math, but it's a 6.6% premium, and if you amortize that over a 10-year period, then I think you could probably take off 0.66% from each year.
Yeah, the formula, I Googled it because I was like, I need to know. And you have to calculate the total interest cost over the cost of those, or over those 10 years, and it just wasn't working.
These aren't the same guys who came up with that formula, are they?
Yeah, they might be.
Just wondering.
They might be.
Anything further, Brian?
No, that's it.
Any questions for Brian?
Joe?
No.
Approval minutes.
Don't push the envelope. We have minutes from the March 27th meeting to consider. Can I have a motion to approve those?
So moved.
Second. Any further discussion?
Nope.
Okay, Joe, now it's time for you.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All right. Thank you very much.
That's question Tim wants.
Okay.
Good night, good year.